Practice 8-6, factoring trinomials of the type ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, so when we have a trinomial with a number in front of the x squared, we can't do the same thing as we did in the last lesson where we look for two numbers that multiply to equal the last number and add to equal the second number, because this first number throws it off. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this first number and take this last number, and we're going to multiply them together. So 2 times 1 is 2. And then from here, we're looking for two numbers that add to equal this middle number. So we have 2 times 1, okay? But instead of putting these directly into the parentheses, what we're going to do first is we're going to split this up into 4 terms. So this 3x becomes a 2x and a 1x, because 2x plus 1x is 3x. So we have 2x squared plus 2x plus 1x plus 1. So now that we have 4 terms, we can draw a box and put these terms inside. So we have 2x squared, 2x, 1x, and 1. And from here, we're looking at each of these and seeing what they have in common. So 2x and 1x have an x in common, and 2x and 1 don't really have anything in common, so all we put down is 1, because that's the only number that can divide both of those. We're going to look at 2x squared and 2x, and what they have in common is 2x. And then we're going to look at 1x and 1, and what they have in common is just 1. So these are your two factors. We're just going to put these in parentheses. We have this x plus 1, and we have this 2x plus 1. So we write x plus 1, 2x plus 1. And this is your final answer. Okay, so once again, we're going to take our first number and our last number and multiply them together. So 5 times negative 7 is negative 35. So we're looking for two factors that add to equal negative 2, this middle number. So we have 5 times 7, and one of these is going to be negative, so let's say negative 7, and when you add them, it equals negative 2. So what we can do is we can split up this negative 2x into 5x minus 7x. So we're going to rewrite this whole polynomial, 5x squared plus 5x minus 7x minus 7. And we can put these 4 terms into a box. So we have 5x squared, 5x minus 7x minus 7. So if we look at this first row going across, what they have in common is 5x. And if we look at this second row going across, what they have in common is negative 7. If we look at this first column going down, what they have in common is just x. And if you look at this last column going down, they don't have anything in common, which means you write 1. So we have a minus over here, and this is going to be a plus. So we're going to write these down in parentheses. So we have x plus 1 and 5x minus 7. And this is your final answer. Okay, so we have 3y squared minus 16y minus 12. So we're going to take our first number and our last number and multiply them together. So 3 times negative 12 is negative 36. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply to equal negative 36 and add to equal negative 16. So we have, let's see, we have 2 and 18, we have 3 and 12, we have 4 and 9, and we have 6 and 6. But remember that one of these need to be positive and one of these need to be negative. So since this is negative over here, we're going to make the bigger one negative. So 2 minus 18 is negative 16, and those are our two numbers. So we're going to split this up into 2y and minus 18y. So we're going to rewrite all of this. So we have 3y squared plus 2y minus 18y minus 12. So the first two terms stay the same. We're just splitting up this middle one into these two terms. Now we're going to put them in a box. So we have 3y squared, 2y, minus 18y, and negative 12. So let's look at this first column. We have 3y squared and 18y, and what they have in common is 3y, because you can divide both of these by 3y. Then we're going to look at our second column. We have 2y and negative 12, and what they have in common is 2. Now we're going to go across. We have 3y squared and 2y, and what they have in common is just y. And then we have negative 18y and negative 12, and what they have in common is negative 6. So what we're going to do is we're going to put these in our parentheses. So we have 3y plus 2, that's this top one up here, and then y minus 6, and that's this one on the side. And this is your final answer. Okay, so we have 3x squared plus 8x plus 5. So we are going to take our first number and our last number and multiply them together. So that equals 15. And we're looking for two factors that add to equal 8. So 5 times 3 equals 15, and 5 plus 3 is 8. So we're going to split this up into 5x and 3x. So when we rewrite the whole polynomial, we have 3x squared plus 5x plus 3x plus 5. So now we are going to make our box. So we have 3x squared, 5x, 3x, and 5. So if we look at this first column, we have 3x squared and 3x, and what they have in common is 3x. We have 5x and 5, and what they have in common is 5. We have 3x squared and 5x, and what they have in common is x. And we have 3x and 5, and they don't have anything in common, which means the only thing they have in common is 1. So we're going to set up our parentheses, and in the first one, we put this one on top, or you can put the one on the bottom, it doesn't matter. You have 3x plus 5, and then x plus 1. And this is your final answer. So we have 5x squared minus 33x minus 14. So we're taking this first and last number. So we have 5 times negative 14, and 5 times negative 14 is negative 70. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply to equal negative 70 and add to equal negative 33. So since this is negative, we're going to have one positive number and one negative number. So we have 7 and negative 10. We have 2 and negative 35. So let's try adding these. So 7 plus negative 10 is negative 3, and 2 plus negative 35 is negative 33. So that's what we're looking for, negative 33. So we're going to split this up into positive 2x minus 35x. Okay, so when we rewrite our polynomial, we have 5x squared plus 2x minus 35x minus 14. Okay, because the first and the last term stay the same. Now we can make our box. So we have 5x squared plus 2x minus 35x minus 14. So if we look at this first column, we have 5x squared and negative 35x, and what they have in common is 5x. Let's look at our second one. We have 2x and negative 14, and what they have in common is 2. Okay, let's go across now. We have 5x squared and 2x, and what they have in common is x. And then we have negative 35x and negative 14, and what they have in common is negative 7. So now we're going to make our parentheses. So we have 5x plus 2, that's this top one over here, and then we're going to write our second one, the one on the side, x minus 7. And this is our final answer. We have 5y squared minus 3y minus 2. We're going to take this 5 and this negative 2 and multiply them together, and that equals negative 10. And we're going to look for our two factors. So we have 1 and negative 10, 10 and negative 1. We have 5 and negative 2, and positive 2 and negative 5. So this is negative 9, this is positive 9, this is positive 3, and this is negative 3. So since we're looking for negative 3, we have positive 2 and negative 5. So we're going to split this up into 2y minus 5y. And then we're going to bring down our other two terms and rewrite the polynomial. So we have 5y squared plus 2y minus 5y minus 2. And then we're going to make our box. So we have 5y squared, 2y, minus 5y, and minus 2. So let's look at this first one. We have 5y squared minus 5y, and what they have in common is 5y. We have 2y and negative 2, and what they have in common is 2. Going across, we have 5y squared and 2y, and what they have in common is y. And then we have negative 5y and negative 2, and what they have in common is just the negative, so we have negative 1. So when we write our parentheses, we're going to say 5y plus 2, which is this one up here, and then y minus 1, which is the one on the side right here. And this is our final answer. Okay, number 19, we are going to take this first 2 and this last negative 3, and 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. So in order to get negative 6, we have 6 and negative 1, negative 6 and positive 1. We have 3 and negative 2, and negative 3 and positive 2. So this is positive 5, this is negative 5, this is positive 1, and this is negative 1. So we're looking for positive 5, which means we're looking at this first combination, 6 and negative 1. So we're going to split this up into 6x minus 1x. And we're going to rewrite the whole polynomial. So we have 2x squared plus 6x minus 1x minus 3, because this and this stay the same. So now we're going to make our box. So we have 2x squared plus 6x, negative 1x, and negative 3. And we're going to look for what they have in common. So we have 2x squared minus 1x. They have an x in common. We have 6x and negative 3, and what they have in common is a 3. Going across, we have 2x squared and 6x, and what they have in common is 2x. And then we have negative 1x and negative 3, and what they have in common is negative 1. So we're going to make our parentheses, and we're going to have x plus 3 and 2x minus 1. And this is your final answer. Last one, we have 3x squared minus 7x minus 6. So we have this 3 and this negative 6, and we're going to multiply them, and that equals negative 18. So when we're looking for factors, we're going to have one positive and one negative. We have 3 and negative 6. We have 2 and negative 9, and we have 1 and negative 18. So 3 minus 6 is negative 3, 2 minus 9 is negative 7, and that's the number we're looking for. So we're going to use 2x minus 9x. And then we're going to bring down our first and last term. Okay, and then we can make our box. So we have 3x squared, 2x, minus 9x, minus 6. So what this first column has in common, we have 3x squared and negative 9x, and they have 3x in common. Then we have 2x and negative 6, and what that has in common is 2. And we have 3x and 2x, what that has in common is x. And then we have negative 9x and negative 6, and what you get is negative 3. So we're going to make our parentheses. We have 3x plus 2 and x minus 3. And this is our final answer. And that is it for practice 8-6.